Good evening, ladies. It's so exciting to be here this evening and start a new learning with you. I chose a book that I just wanted so bad to learn. It's called Mesilat Yesharim, or the translation that I found is The Path of the Just. I hope it means something to you. And it was written by Rabbi Chaim Lutzato, who was also called Haramchal, who was a very great Jewish leader. And it's a brand new book. It was written in on the year of 1740. It's like less than 300 years ago. It's brand new in Jewish history. And it talks about what is the path to get closer to Hashem. What do we need to do? How can we correct ourselves and become better people and find the right path in life? And that's something that I feel is so important. And he starts his introduction saying that he didn't write this book thinking he's going to teach us so many new things that we've never learned before, something brand new. He says it's something that everyone knows. And even though it's something that everyone knows, it's something that we forget. And it's something that we need to bring into our minds and to make it clear into our minds. He says all the wisest people, the brightest Jews that we have, they learn Talmud and they learn the halacha and they learn all these things, but the most basic things, people just think they're so obvious, they're so clear, so they don't spend hours and hours learning them. And he says, when you look at the Jewish people, many people learn medicine or math or engineering, and people learn different melachot, like how to do things, how to build things of wood and how to work with metals or diamonds or whatever. And some people focus on Jewish studies, some people focus on learning Torah, but even those who focus on learning Torah, they focus on the Talmud or the Kabbalah or halacha or whatever. But there aren't so many people who actually spend hours and focus on learning what is the path to be as close to Hashem as possible. How can we purify ourselves? How can we become better people? How can we have stronger faith? How can we be more passionate and just have this passion to Hashem, just to be as close to Hashem as possible? And he says people don't learn that. And the people who do learn that are the people who are not so wise, are not so bright. They cannot sit for hours and hours and learn the Talmud or the Mishnah or whatever it is. So that's what they do. So they focus on the inner learning, how to purify our hearts and become better people, whatever. And he says, and that's the problem, because the wisest people don't really spend hours learning it. And the people who learn it really for hours are the people that are not so wise. They don't really get it so much because they're not the wisest. So no one really learns it. And he says it's something that we need to go over again and again and again and just bring it deep into our souls and into our hearts and make it as clear as the sun for us. And he says it's not something that is natural for us, like eating or sleeping. And it is something that we can very easily lose and we can very easily miss. And he says, and there are so many things that we can do to make sure that we don't miss it, to make sure that we don't lose it. So it is our obligation, it is our duty, it's our responsibility to make sure that we learn it, that we know it, that we don't lose it and we don't miss out on it. And he says, if we won't learn it, how are we going to have it? If we don't learn if we don't focus, if we don't spend time and thought about how to bring ourselves to truth, faith, if we don't learn, how are we going to have true faith? How are we going to have passion towards Hashem and Torah? How are we going to have it? And he says that if there is a person who does everything, all the mitzvot, and he learns Torah, and he keeps Shabbat, and he eats kosher, he does everything, but in his heart, he's empty. He doesn't feel anything. He doesn't have a drop of faith. He doesn't have a drop of passion. Then it's hated by Hashem, because we have a pasuk. It says, it's not a pasuk, it's in the Talmud. It says, "Rachamana li babei." It's in Aramaic. It says, what Hashem wants is your heart. That's what Hashem wants. And what are we going to, and that's what he asks. He asks, what are we going to say on the day we die? And they'll ask us, you've spent so many hours and so much time learning all the things that you don't have to. You don't have to sit and learn. Like, yes, you're obligated to learn Torah. But you could have learned Talmud, but you didn't have to necessarily learn Talmud. You could have learned other things. But there is one thing that you have to learn. You have to learn how to be a better Jew. You have to learn how to be as close to Hashem as possible, how to purify yourself, how to become a better person. This is something you have to. How could you not do it? This is something that we will be asked, and we need to have a good answer. And he also says that there is a pasuk that is said by King Solomon, the son of King David HaMelech. It says, "Im tevakshena kechesef uchematmonim techapsena, as tavin yirat Hashem," which means if you want to understand the connection between a Jew and Hashem, you need to look for it. And he says, "Im tevakshena kekesef," you need to chase it the way people chase money. Uchematmonim techapsena, and you need to look for it like people look for treasures. And if you won't look for it this way, you won't find it. And he wasn't talking about learning about the Talmud, and he wasn't talking about keeping Shabbat, and he wasn't talking, keeping Shabbat is the most important thing in the world. But he wasn't talking about all these things. He was talking about the connection and the relationship between a Jew and Hashem. And he says, if you won't look for it, if you won't chase it, you will never find it. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to look for it. We're going to chase it. Bezrat Hashem together. And I'm very excited to have you with me and hoping that we will have a great learning together. Bye.